Test. Okay. Hi, welcome to our session. We want to talk about SD-WAN, SASE. Why should I really care? And what is the buzz about? And what are the different challenges when we are currently talking about the multi-cloud environment that we have and where we talk about these days? My name is Sascha Schwunk. I'm a partner at ComDivision. And I'm working with ComDivision in the complete VMware portfolio. And we have done many projects with SD-WAN, and today we want to talk about it.
So yeah, welcome from my side as well. I'm Yves Sandfort. I'm also from ComDivision. I'm the CEO of the ComDivision group. Similar to Sascha, I work a lot on our SD-WAN and public cloud projects. Let me give you a 5 seconds rundown on what we do. Basically, within ComDivision, we operate in 3 different ways. We do architecture, we do education, so not only knowledge transfer as part of the projects, but also normal VMware classroom trainings, and then we take over the operations part. And that is actually quite an interesting part when it comes down to SD-WAN, because what we have seen many customers when they start on the SD-WAN journey, they very often come to us and ask us like, yeah, but we don't really want to get into the business of doing long distance routing and everything else. Very often throughout the project that actually changes, where they figure out that SD-WAN is making a lot of it so much easier for them that they can actually take it on themselves. So that is also something whenever you consider an SD-WAN or SASE project, to figure out for yourself a bit of the balance between what do I really want to do myself, what do I need to go give to someone else, and what needs to be done by a third party from that perspective. But talking about SD-WAN, why do we need this in the first place? So we have several challenges, especially the pandemic has speeded up some of these challenges even more, because when we look at it, what do we have to deal with nowadays in companies? It's no longer just one data center and everybody is working in the office. We have branch offices we need to connect it, or branch stores or something else. We have home office which we need to connect, and we need to make this in a secure fashion. Sometimes we need to especially also integrate additional devices like printers, scanners, and everything else at home, and not all of that is always directly connected to the computer. But an even more important part when we talk about SD-WAN is that it's also no longer that all the data has to go back to the corporate data center. Very often we have to deal with the need that we actually have to export data into public clouds. That can be that something goes to Microsoft, something goes to Zoom, something goes to AWS, and all of these different places. So all of that combined brings in much more complexity in how I build and operate my WAN solution from that perspective. New things like VMC on AWS come into place, and then I might even have to have direct connects into all kinds of different public clouds. So all of that are the challenges we have to deal with, and combining, especially since the pandemic, and it feels like it's more to stay, is home office is no longer just where my home is. I mean, there is a lot of discussions going on in social media at the moment where people ask us like, so you should be in your home office, but reality is my home office really where my home is, or can my home office also be on a cruise ship or on an island or somewhere else? But that, on the other hand, actually brings new challenges for corporate IT, because where do I terminate my, my client VPN connection? Is that always in the corporate headquarters? That might not be the best idea. And all of these are challenges we face and which we can address with an SD-WAN and SASE solution at the moment. So,
yes, and when we talking about this different networks that we have, these different locations where our services and data are stored and make it available. We can see it here on the right side, infrastructure as a service, services that we can get. We're talking the complete days about the multi-cloud environments, but we also have private clouds. We have smaller service providers where we can store data. Many companies don't want to go to the big ones. They have their own service providers where they are working with. We have the edge clouds. And the goal is here that we have with VeloCloud, SD-WAN, that we have our gateways all in all these environments. We have gateways to go out at Azure, at AWS. We can go to the VMC stuff. We can build our own gateways. For example, we can go, when you're having an environment on VMC, on AWS, you are available to connect your VMC on AWS directly to SD-WAN, so that, for example, if you have a home office user or a smaller office, you can directly connect to the services on VMC on AWS, and with the same lanes, you can go to your headquarters and so on.
Yeah. So overall, when you look at it, when you talk about SD-WAN, there's always different layers, and there are different vendors out there giving you different solutions. And even within VMware's solution stack, you can actually differentiate between different license types, giving you different feature sets. But the most comprehensive feature set is really when you go in and actually acquire that you can use the cloud gateways from the provider, or in this case VMware, but there are also other telcos who provide these types of gateways. Because imagine, like, when you were to build this yourself, you would have hundreds or thousand entry points into your VPN all of a sudden, and you have exit points. And in between is, in the middle, a highly dynamic network which allows you to directly breach out wherever is the nearest pass. One of the best scenarios which I had was one customer where we did a connection. They are sitting in Germany with their headquarters, and they have a massive manufacturing plant in Singapore. So one of the challenges they always had, even over MPLS, is that over MPLS they had 200, 250 milliseconds connections because there were too many hops still in between. When they switched into SD-WAN, and that was a lucky game in that specific scenario, they actually came down to 150 milliseconds because the luck they had was they could actually attach to a gateway directly in Singapore, which was done automatically. From there, traffic basically went through a fiber optics line directly into Frankfurt because there was a direct connect in that specific scenario. And that basically breached out of Frankfurt again to the customer. So they brought down latency with this massively without investing into it. And the savings they made from getting rid of MPLS and actually changing it into SD-WAN were massive. But let's also talk about something else which we are solving with an SD-WAN solution, Sascha.
Yes. Many times we have problems. We're using different internet connections. Here in this example, we have an MPLS connection and a Comcast cable. And many times we have a high latency, or we have packet loss on these internet connections. And with SD-WAN, we can solve these problems. So in SD-WAN, we have a continuous link monitoring. So we monitoring every link every time. And we do an overlay over our internet connections. Though we're using the overlay, and for example, when we are connecting to any services, we're going over the overlay and not on cable A or cable B. We're using both cables, can combine it. And though you can see it on the right side here, we have the VeloCloud enhancements where we have very big problems with packet loss or high latencies. We can solve all of this. And after we have enabled VeloCloud, we have a complete green line, so the complete internet connection is good, and we can work with it.
So one of the advantages is normally if you have 2 or 3 uplinks is always that VPNs, etc., need to get reconnected if something drops. Based on the fact that you are basically connecting through the gateways, you're more or less external IP, and stuff like that doesn't really change on the outside anymore. So this gives you much more control. However, for security reasons, for example, you need to have a certain traffic which has to go through MPLS or something else. You can easily also control and steer that. So you have a lot of ways on how to influence that from that perspective. And the final part, when we look into all of this, is the SASE aspect. So all of what you can build from an SD-WAN perspective with edges and everything else, if we combine this on the VMware side with Workspace ONE and all the capabilities from there and their security, we can actually enable the same feature set more or less for every home office user. So wherever you are with your cell phone, so if I take my cell phone, it's sitting on the desk, if I take my cell phone and connect via VPN into corporate network, it actually would pick not our Frankfurt hotspot, it would actually figure out the nearest US hotspot for me. And then I'm transported within the VeloCloud network to the outgoing point, for example, our VMC host or something else. So all of your users actually have a much better experience when they work from outside the office, and because they can basically connect to hundreds of hops all around the world. So this really speeds it up. You get the security layer in it. And what we have seen very often is in the beginning, people have the big fear that this is highly complex and hard to maintain, nearly where everybody starts off with the idea we need someone to get this to be done managed, and in the end we end up in a scenario that they do it, most of them themselves.
Yeah, okay. The time is over or nearly over. We have to say thank you that you have joined our session.
And if you have any questions, approach us here or find us throughout the conference, and we are happy to start into it. Or if there is any question now, we can take that now and start that if Alistair is not going to kill me. He's killing me. Okay, so any questions outside of the session? Thank you.
Thanks.